To see some of the deliberate methods by which we are swayed, then it's wise for us to begin by looking at Mr. Edward Bernays, the master manipulator of orchestrated events. He was known as the propaganda father of mass media spin. The psychology of the masses was his entire work's underpin, and manipulating human emotions as his strategy was core built in. The legacy of his work now everywhere, hidden somewhat yet still akin. Not just in advertising and popular culture, but also in politics and how to spin public support for anything from candidate wins to unethical war sims. He was inspiration to Joseph Goebbels, not really the kind of person with whom you want your life's work to be twinned, but there we have it. That horror and inspiration began with him. Mass psychological operations, thenceforth called, were of his original sin, which is why we use him, Mr. Edward Bernays, nephew of Sigmund Freud, to make this 3-part essay on mass media manipulations begin. First enlisted by the seller's market, he was their profit linchpin. Follows is a list of just some of his manipulated wins. Bacon and eggs becoming the daily on the breakfast table. For the beech nut packing company who employed him, ka-ching. Fluoride from waste product to now sellable for tooth decay. Double win, how to dispose of toxins and yet still sound ka-ching. Diamonds for love, soon in every romance and on near every engagement ring. Bling ka-ching. We'll see very shortly how he masterminded all of these things. But my favorite Bernays swindle? Women smoking cigarettes, the reverse trend of the decade and day. Of course, none of these habits or cliches were always this way. They became so through manipulation and through media play. Bacon as if by doctor's orders. Healthy, hearty breakfast, best for all day. Fluoride sold in similar way, from rat poison to as if approved by the ADA. And those dentists who spoke out, well, they found their jobs or their funding taken away. Diamonds in the movies laid on the prettiest of stars, from Marilyn to Miss Doris Day. And in the same time it takes for us to say, jingle, diamonds are a girl's best friend. And that, as they say in the industry, is a wrap. Or might we call it a manipulated commercial trap? You decide. Cigarettes, torches of freedom, glory term used to suggest liberation and printed as such in the press one day. Snap the nicely dressed ladies as they light up their props. It's framed. It's a setup. Theatrics and cameramen all at the ready. Lighters, camera, action. Important that we know that the association of female smokers was depicted negatively until then. In cinema, they were for the whores or for the coarse ones with less manner. But now, with further media makeover, a sure symbol of liberation and of glamour. Every theatrical aspect of it designed and staged, a full charade, all undertaken at the fashionable and well-attended Easter parade, and done for one purpose only, to manipulate and persuade. And please, let's call a spade a spade. All of this masquerade in what? One bloke's damned profit of trade. For money always the people betrayed. The lives of others so cheap for some, and yet their own souls sold for a sum. But karma, this they will not escape from. End result of this covert campaign, on a $25,000 investment, Lucky Strike's return struck gold. Consumers were doubled, along with early death age. Experiencing any outrage? Because I'm telling us, we are still being had and we are still being played in just these types of ways, and not just commercially, but also to enslave, mentally, emotionally, physically, politically, programmed and schooled, taken too long for both the mark and the fool. Because as simple as just shown, by abusing our trust, behaviors and opinions are formed en masse, many not even questioned, as if always been that way. Or seen as one's own thinking, not recognizing that we've been emotionally, physically, or politically swayed. It's manipulated groupthink. No shame to admitting that. It's just the way it is. It's fact. So let us get most real on that. It's the first step to arriving at freedom from unseen contract. It's a mental coup d'etat. The world ought to revolve on trust, but power has got real goddamn dirty. And while many have that part sussed, The bit we can find harder to digest is just how sinister, orchestrated, inauthentic, and tied up it has got. And here, having just spoken of coups, let's take a look at Guatemala and the fight there over bananas. Beginning with Bernays scam, with United Fruits Corp and later the CIA-backed US government. Here began the psychological operation to make them a threat to Americana, reversing what was the actual case, that democracy there was on increase. He arranged free trip for journalists, during which, and the plan was his, they happened upon a violent anti-American riot. The scam is it was a staged crisis to create panic, to recreate the terror campaign, utilizing fear of Reds under the bed. It was the era for faking commie threat. Later, of course, this became the Muslim Islamic threat, and now Hyperona. He staged this and the later coup, aided via faked Marxist propaganda, leaflets littered by their own people, then later held up as proof exhibit. United Fruits kept their banana access, and the US government, under flipped guise of upholding the values of democracy, got in the next yes man, who was not democratic but more despotic. Screwed over the locals? No matter. They got what they wanted. A country in chaos is more compliant. What we have witnessed here is the very definition of an imperialist giant. When it comes to method of fuckery, they have ownership on the lot. And when it comes to how we think, they know all of the techniques. So a call then to remember that much, if not all, perception is thus via media methods framed, contextually and literally framed. Our thinking and opinions therefore too often, too easily other-maintained. The danger with media is that we, the people, have come to rely on it, to stay knowledgeable, informed, from everything from music, politics, to when a royal baby is born. It's the mass means to quickly express, to give out full public address. It's the vehicle for public relations. And look, even the phrase public relations is a Bernays spin, he being most aware that propaganda doesn't quite have the same ring. Propaganda, public relations, it's the method by which the public's opinion is set, and the how of how reactions and responses get done. Our behaviors and habits get shaped by beliefs, and we're more often taught what to think than we are how to think. So moreover, what we do and what we don't do is too often a matter of being led. And I hate to say it, as we hate to hear it, but opinion then is far too often fed. So with the nod going to Mr. Bernays, this methodology was continued and has stayed purposely designed. The how to best mastermind the psychology of humankind, manipulate on mass states of mind, to have individualism confined and people's own thinking undermined. The motivation and goal behind? To the establishment's own wants, needs, and interests have all be aligned. And so it was, so it became, and so it is. The CIA's plan and later corporations to infiltrate and control all media outlets, to take hidden hand of the greatest propaganda tool, to master everything from the paper print to the film spool, to own and manipulate opinion's greatest shaping tools. We will end part one of media manipulations here, having just got us familiar with the aims and objectives of the CIA's 1950s Operation Mockingbird. They fully understand, and so too then must we, that power is an information war, that he who controls the world has control of the word. As we've heard many times now, it's how most thinking gets transferred. And so to maintain and influence public thought and the actions and behavior that follow the thought, one must then be in position as master and controller of both the written and of the spoken word. That's all one reads and all we see screened. In part two, then, we'll look at the media machine and how it got dominated by corporations, and how this ownership, while obscenely influential, seems to have become routine. That its overarching ability to politically and culturally set scene is each headline later forgotten, and thus goes largely and dangerously unseen.